welcome to the Ria and Alka show. We are so pleased to have you with us each and every morning. We love you. We welcome you to the show. And today, my co-host, Ria, is going to be leading the conversation. So without further ado, my name is Alka.
My name is Ria.
And welcome to our show. Okay, Ria, I'm going to pass the mic on to you.
Thank you, Alka. And today's topic is Increase Our Financial IQ by Robert Kiyosaki. And this is part Financial IQ number 3. Let me get my notability here. And today's topic is Financial IQ number 3, Budgeting Our Money. And today's topic is the first type of budget, which is a budget deficit. So this is part of the Financial IQ number 3, which is budgeting our money. So I'll be sharing with you 5 points on today's topic of the first type of budget, which is the budget deficit. So what is budget deficit? Now, according to Barron's Finance and Investment Handbook, budget deficit is excess of spending so this is our wings. This is the money. Excess of spending for over income for either a government, a corporation, or an individual. So budget deficit is this. So that means when our spending is greater than our income. This is a pig, and this is our piggy bank. And wings means the money flies faster than the money coming in. So that's lesson number 1. Lesson number 2. The reason so many of us operate on the budget deficit is because it is easier for us to spend the money versus rather than to make money. It's easy to spend than to make money. Lesson number 3. If we face a crippling budget deficit, what do we do? Instinctively, what do we do? So we usually choose to cut off or back off on our spending. For the book says, instead of cutting back on spending, we should use our faucets. That's a stream. That's another stream. The book recommends that we increase our income. So we need to increase our income. Number 5, it is smarter to expand our means by increasing income. Now the question is, how do we increase our income? So there are 10 ways to increase income. So number 1, the first one is to turn our hobby into a business. So for example, if you collect cars, I know there's a real estate mentor that I once followed. He loves expensive cars. And so he loves to collect cars. In fact, he has a building filled with cars. So what he does with those collection of cars is he also made it into a business. How? He either sells them or he showcased them during the real estate show, our meetings. And he usually contrasts his real estate with his cars. So turn your hobby into a business. Turn my hobby into a business. 2, second way to increase our income is to start a side gig. So how do you do that? So for example, if you like to play piano and you're great at playing piano, you can teach others. You can be a tutor to others. Another side gig that I can think of is if you have a home, you can also rent out your home when you are away. Or C, if you have a lot of free time and I know of home cleaners, my housekeepers. You can also clean for others. Or you can wash car for others. It depends on what you like to do. So start a side gig. Third, we can also sell all unwanted belongings that are taking up our space, right? That's in your closet, that's in your basement, that's in your garage. Take an inventory of what you have, and if you have not used it over the last 1 year, go try to sell it. So there's Facebook Marketplace that you can sell. There's newspaper that you can advertise. So there are online stuff that you can sell them. Fourth is to explore tax deductions and tax credits. So I would recommend that you get a team member that's qualified. So that would be a qualified CPA to know more what are the tax credit and tax deductions available for you in your country. Number 5, learn investing. So there's several forms of investing. There's stocks, bonds, mutual funds. There's crypto. I know a lot of my friends are into crypto and Bitcoin. And what I love is real estate, specifically apartments. That is my niche, is real estate apartments. 6, teach what you know. So for example, in my case, I know apartments. So I teach others about my journey of how I got into buying one single family home to now owning over 75 apartments. So what I do, I have a free webinar, and it's in fact this August 27th, Saturday at 11 a.m. US Eastern Time. So I have a free live webinar, and then I also have 5-week masterclass, and I also have 1 year of mentorship. And that is how we can increase our income, by teaching what we know. 7, and I explained it earlier, when you have a side gig, you can rent out a room or a house. You can try Airbnb, vacation rental, or you can rent out a room. If you have an extra room in the basement, then you can rent it out. If you have an extra room in the attic, go rent it out. Or if you have another room somewhere in your first floor that they have private access to, then rent it out. If they don't have private access, you can imagine and create an access for them, so that way you are not disturbed when your clients move in and move out. So to provide you some privacy, you have to visualize, you have to dream and see where could a perfect door be placed in your home, in your first floor living room space, so that you have privacy and your clients would have privacy as well. Number 8, look for a new job. Of course, when you look for a new job, hopefully it pays higher. Now, don't forget, we also pay tax too. So you have to take in consideration the tax. Number 9, so you look for a new job, or you look for a second job. My mom is a nurse, and I know that she has classmates here in the USA. And a lot of times the nurses, they can do double work, double job. They can work from one hospital, and when they're off, they go work in another hospital. Or during their day off, they work in a different hospital. So that's their second job. Number 10, you ask for a raise. Now, asking for a raise requires negotiation skills. So before you ask a raise, make sure you read something on learning how to eloquently ask for a raise. Don't just approach your boss and say, hey, I need a raise. There are certain skills that we have to learn. And that's the negotiation skills that I have to learn before I approach my boss why I need a raise. So I have to back it up with data. I have to back it up with numbers. What money did I bring in? What money did I contribute to my employer before I ask for a raise? So these are the 10 ways of how you and I can increase our income. So to recap on today's topic, so this is a book by 𝗦𝗵𝗲, and this is increasing our financial IQ number 3, which is budgeting our money, specifically the first type of budget, which is the budget deficit. So there are 5 lessons that I'm going to share with you, impart to you today. And first is a budget deficit, according to Barron's Finance and Investment Handbook, means it's excess of spending over income for a government, for a corporation, or an individual. So that means a budget deficit, there's more spending versus income. Second, the reason why so many of us operate on a budget deficit is because it is easier to spend. It is easier to spend than to make money. Lesson number 3. If we face crippling budget deficit, what do we usually do? We choose to cut back on our spending. Lesson number 4. The book recommends, instead of cutting our spending, we need to increase our income. We need to have more drips of income contributing to this big river of income. So you could have small drips here, small drips over there, small drips here, small drips over there, which eventually lead to a much bigger income. Lesson number 5, it is smarter to expand our means by increasing income. So here are 10 ways that we can increase our income. First, turn our hobby into a business. For example, if you collect cars, I have a mentor who collects exotic cars. So what he does is he sells those cars and he also uses them as a showcase when we do real estate mentoring or real estate meeting. Second, start a side gig. For example, if you like to play the piano and you're great at it, then you can teach others to play piano. If you're great in chess, then you can do that as well. If you like to clean, then you can also provide your services as a cleaner. Whatever you like to do, whatever you're passionate, you can start that as a side gig. Third, all unwanted belongings, you need to consider that if you have not used them for more than a year, to sell them. Check your closet, check your basement, check your garage. What things in your home that you have not used for more than a year, go sell them. You can sell them on Facebook Marketplace. You can sell them in the newspaper. You advertise in the newspaper. 4, explore tax deductions and tax credit. This requires a qualified CPA, so talk with your accountant. CPA is Certified Public Accountant. 5th, learn investing. There's a lot of investment vehicles. It could be stocks, bonds, mutual funds, crypto, Bitcoin, real estate. And I specifically like apartments. Now, one of my mentors says, what is an asset? An asset provides income. What is an investment? An investment is an asset that provides income. If it does not provide income every month, it is not an asset. It is a liability. So you have to consider what investment vehicle you want to be in, because you're not investing to lose money. You're investing to make more money. And this is the point: increase our income and not to lose income. 6, teach what you know. So for example, I teach apartments. I have over 10 years of experience of starting from one single family home to over 75 apartment units between my husband and I. So I teach others, specifically physicians, who wants to learn about apartment investing. 7, rent out a room or rent out a house. Especially if you're going away, you may consider renting your house while you're away. Or if you have a room in the basement or a room in the attic, then you can choose to rent that out. Or if you have lots of room in your first floor, you just have to visualize where you can add a door, an entry door for them, so that you have your own privacy and the guests have their own privacy as well. 8, look for a new job, which should be a higher pay. Now remember, we also have to consider taxes because we do pay for tax. So we have to be smart. Number 9, look for a second job. And I explained earlier, my mom, for example, is a nurse by profession. So she has a lot of classmates here in the USA who works as a nurse. And what they do after they work from their major employer, they go do a second job to work for a different employer. Or when they're day off, then they're not working for their first employer. Now they're working for their second employer. So that's an example of a second job. Or it could totally be unrelated to your main profession. Number 10, ask for a raise. Now, I would not advise that you just go head up with your boss and say, hey, boss, I need a raise. You got to read about negotiation skills. There are tactics to asking for a raise. You have to consider what amount of money you contributed to the business, to your employer. So if you brought in a lot of money, then yes, ask for a raise. So what did you contribute to your employer's bottom line? Because if you did a lot, then you can ask for commission, you can ask for a bonus. There's a lot of things that I need to learn. And I would recommend, before you ask for a raise, read on negotiation skills. So those are my 5 lessons for today on increased budget deficit. And these are the 10 ways of increasing our income. So hopefully you guys learned something, and let me know in the comment section below what your key takeaways are. And hopefully you'll keep tuning in for more of 𝗥𝗵𝗲 show, where we will provide you our knowledge, our experience on how we got here. So stay tuned for more.
Ria, that was amazing. Thank you for sharing that. That was a relevant conversation, because we need that. We need to know, how are we budgeting our money, right? And when we talk about the budget deficit, I guess the comment that I had was, we hear of governments are always going into deficit because they, like you said, is the excess of spending. And that's why when we look at it, and we look at the history of how the governments have been going to deficit, right? Because they overspend. And I guess now, we're in an economic downturn. The governments are in trouble.
Yes, that I agree with you. And that's why the government needs all its individuals, right, all the private citizens, right, to contribute. So that's why we have in our country, in the USA, we have the tax law. The tax law are meant as an incentive for us. It's a roadmap that if you follow, if you do what the government wants you to do, at the end of that roadmap is the treasure. What is the treasure? The treasure is the tax incentive, the tax deductions, the tax breaks. That if you solve the government's problem, if you are a partner in solving the community's problem, then they'll give you all those tax deductions. Remember, the government is not a great businessman. Why? Because all it does is spend, 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 like you said, spending over income, right? It's not their money. All they do is just raise our taxes. And that's why, you know, we are in inflation right now. Raise the interest rate. That's what they need to do. And we as private citizens, we are more business savvy than the government, because why? If we have excess spending versus income, we go into bankruptcy. The government, the US government can just print its way out. We cannot print. That would be illegal on our part. So we need to have, as private citizens, to have a good grip on the income, a good grip on the expenses, so we don't get into bankruptcy. We cannot print out money, but the government does. So that's why they rely on private individuals such as you and I to solve their problem. How can we solve our problem? Me and Alka provide housing to our community. You can also solve for water, for shelter, for food, you know, for a lot of things. Whatever we use every day, think of it. How can I contribute and you know, present this to my community, where I now become a partner of the government, and I get that treasure at the end of the roadmap. The treasure is the tax incentives.
Exactly. And you know what? Because not many people look at it in the realm of, you know, getting those tax incentives, to getting those tax benefit. And, you know, we need to know as consumers, as individuals and part of the community, how can we benefit? Where can we see those benefits? And, you know, like when you talked about having those tax breaks, you know, I really love this conversation, because I mean, it is so you know, relevant and so appropriate at the same time, because, you know, when we talk about deficits, why we go into deficit, and when we hear about the governments going into a deficit, it's because they've overspent. Here in Canada, you know, Justin Trudeau and his governments, they have overspent. And they are now into deficit, but they want the community, they want us as taxpayers to pay towards the mistakes that they make. So I guess governments can always be like let off the hook, because it doesn't matter what they do, right?
They can always print money.
Yeah.
But it's illegal for us to be printing money. So that's why we are better businessmen and businesswomen than the government. Because if we do not know how to control our spending and increase our income, we go into unwanted bankruptcy. And that's, you know, we do not want that, right? So that's why we need to learn. And then once we learn, we get educated, then we deploy the knowledge.
Exactly. So financial education is got to be there. Financial education, guys, you know, we need to, just like we talked about many conversations ago, we had talked about, you know, being your White House. You are your White House, and you need to know, we need to know, how are we spending, overspending, excessive spending? And once we know absolutely as to where that money is, you know, where are we spending, overspending, etc., then things can become so much easier, right, Ria? Things can become so much easier, because once we have that crystal clear on the grip on our finances, things can become like so much easier to.
I would recommend that, you know, if you are spending in your own White House, you keep a tally, keep track on it. Use an Excel spreadsheet. Don't just rely on, you know, this bank statements, because you could be using cash and you could be losing, you know, not deducting those spending. So I would recommend what I did in the beginning, even up to present. I use an Excel spreadsheet and I write down all my expenses. I write down all the credit cards and cash. That's money either coming in and money coming out. Every month I track them. So I would recommend it, because it was helpful and it is helpful to me, that you also consider tracking your income and expense daily, monthly in an Excel spreadsheet. Income, expense, assets, liabilities. That's personal financial statement. And the personal financial statement is one of the requirements of your banker when you borrow money, right, to either start your business. Either you sell sell something online, or you go buying apartments.
That is wonderful, Ria. I absolutely love it, guys. If you hope that you took a ton of notes, I know I did, because this conversation, I love it. And, as we always talk about on the show, Ria and I, we share our knowledge. Knowledge is one thing, and it's great to have the knowledge, but what do you need to do? What do we need to go out and do is to take action, because it's in the action that we get to learn what we've learned, but also what are we doing? What do we need to do? And in this conversation is, drop it in the chat. What was your takeaway? What's your biggest takeaway that you got out of today's conversation? And also at the same time, I hope that you took a ton of notes, because that's where, it truly makes a huge difference as to what you are doing right now in your lives. So guys, we have come to the end of another amazing show. Ria, thank you so much for sharing that, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow, same time, same place. But